Well, the Seattle Mariners have pretty much completely fallen off of a cliff. Like, the wheels are off this bus. This bus is still trying to get down the road, but the wheels are completely falling off. There's about one wheel left, and even that one is creaky and rattling. And at this point, the question now is it even worth it to make that pit stop and replace those tires? Or do you just let this season play out, throw it in the towel, and wait till next year? Guys, this is the NW Sportscast. This is not a video that I expected to be making. Also, by the way, it's been a long time. I apologize for my absence. Thank you to Drew for keeping this up. Let's get into the video. I did not think I was going to be making this video. 29 games ago, not even a full month's worth of games ago, the Mariners had a 13-game over 500 record. I believe they were 44-31. They had a 10-game lead over the Astros, a 10-game lead also over the Rangers, and a 15-game lead over the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The Mariners were cruising. They were cruising. And they were doing it against good teams and bad teams. They were winning against Houston. They were winning against Texas. They were winning against teams like the New York Yankees, who we split a series with. They were winning against teams like the Minnesota Twins, the Kansas City Royals, who we beat in a series. Good teams, right? We weren't only winning against bad teams. Now, let's be honest. There were some bad teams that we were winning against, and that did help our record, right? We swept the A's. Okay. Sometimes you got to take what you can get, right? But for the most part, we weren't playing. We didn't stack a bunch of wins against bad teams, right? We won a series against Atlanta, good team, right? We won a series. We lost a series to Baltimore, but we split with the Yankees. We were doing good. We were not a team that was, the Mariners, rather. They're beating all the bad teams, but get ready. No, we had actually been through the toughest part of our schedule to the point where at one point we had the easiest remaining schedule in the league, and we had a 10-game lead over the Astros and Rangers. Easiest remaining schedule, 10-game lead, best pitching staff in baseball, and the Mariners found a way to mariner it. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. The Mariners have marinered it. We set the record, actually. Fastest time to blow a 10-game lead in all of baseball. And I'll tell you this. No team has ever, in the history of baseball, built a 10-game lead in their division and then went on to miss the playoffs. Now, there have been teams who have built a 10-game lead and eventually eventually lost the lead in their division. This is in the wild card era. I should specify. This is in the wild card era. There have been teams that have lost that 10-game lead, but they have all at least made a wild card. None of them in the wild card era have missed the playoffs. The Mariners are on track now to be the first. Classic Mariners. Am I right? I mean, come on. This is just the classic Mariners. The wheels have fallen off the bus, right? This bus was going full speed ahead, and all of a sudden, there came the Astros, and then, the wheels started slowing down. They started slowing down, coming into the All-Star break, and then we got a couple wins against the Padres. Things were looking good, but then we lose 3 to the Angels, and all of a sudden, one of the wheels has popped off. But you still have 3 wheels coming down the bus after the All-Star break. You've got some momentum, right? Gilbert's an All-Star. Munoz is an All-Star. You got some momentum. You're coming down, and then all of a sudden, now Ty France gets cut, and there goes another tire. He's been DFA'd. Get out of here. Cut the dead weight, right? And then Julio gets hurt, and then pop, there goes another tire. And then JP gets hurt, and pop, there goes another one. And then the icing on the cake, Gregory Santos, who hasn't even been all that good since he came back, and now Gregory Santos is hurt too. Pop, pop, pop. The wheels have fallen off. They've come loose. They came loose, they started creaking, and now they are completely off. The Mariners bus has been passed by Houston. Texas bus is now only a game and a half behind us as well. We are, I believe, 3 games back of Boston and Kansas City for the wild card, so we're not even close to the wild card. If you consider, 3 games is a significant amount in baseball. Well, the Mariners blew a 10. Yeah, okay, tell me that, but I don't think we can play 3 games better than Boston going forward. And we played Boston early this season. They seemed to have our number, at least from their pitching staff. We play them coming up next week. Be a big series. Probably gonna lose it. I hate to be a pessimist. We're probably gonna lose it because they're a better team than us right now. The Angels. The Angels bus. The Angels were 15 behind us. I think they were actually 16 behind us at one point. They are now only 7 games behind us. So Houston has made up 11 games. They went from 10 back to 1 above us. They've made up 11 games. So we were 9-20. They were 20-9. That's 11 games. The Rangers have made up 8.5 games. So we went 9-20. They went 17-10. I believe that would be, or 17-11. So they made up 8.5. And the freaking Angels have made up 9 games on us. We went 9-20. They went 18-10 during that same stretch. We are literally, I'm not gonna say I don't think we're gonna end up in 4th place, but we're now only 2 games above 500, right? 13 over, then we go on an 11 under stretch. Now 9-20. And by the way, 9-20 doesn't even make it as bad as it was because it was 3-10. Then we went on a 5-2 run against the Padres Blue Jays, and then in their last 9 games we are 1-8. So we have a 3-10 and a 1-8 stretch. That's 2 really bad, prolonged stretches of baseball. In the middle was that little 5-2 stretch where we actually looked like a competent baseball team. So, really, when you put it that way, I think this is even worse than it looks. 9-20, as bad as it is, this is worse than it looks. Okay, this is worse than it looks. And so, we could end up falling below 500. I don't think we will. I think this is still a team that finishes above 500. But I'll say this. I said in the preseason, I said the Mariners will go 87-75. And I got clowned for saying that. People said, Levi, you are a pessimist. They said, Levi, if the Mariners win 87, and I still thought we'd make a wild card with 87 wins. People said, Levi, there's no way we win less than 90. I was probably one of the most conservative projections on all of Mariners YouTube, Mariners Twitter, anywhere. I had one of the most conservative projections, and we are currently on pace to miss even that. We're on pace to win 83 games, and 83 games is not enough to make the playoffs. Not even in this division, as bad as it is. So now the question becomes, the wheels are off the bus. Houston's ahead of you now. They're going full steam ahead. Texas is now right behind you. They're inching closer. You're still looking at Boston and Kansas City. Tampa Bay now is right there with you in the wild card chase. Detroit's inching closer and closer. Los Angeles, if they get Mike Trout back, they could go on a run. They have an easy schedule. I'm not, again, the Angels are a bad team, but we've seen crazier things happen. The Angels have been on a heater for the past month and a half. I believe they're like 25 and 14 or something in their last 40 games. If Mike Trout comes back, why couldn't the Angels make a run? I mean, they've been a lot better than we have lately. So we've got teams that are coming at us, and we're already out of the playoffs. And here comes this pit stop, and this pit stop is the trade deadline, right? There goes the bus coming down the road. There's a pit stop. It's a trade deadline. What do? Right? Do you pay the money, in this case, the prospects? Do you pay to replace those tires? Do you pay to fix the bus? Because right now the wheels are off the bus. Right? You're barely moving at all. You've basically slowed to a screeching halt. Your momentum is gone. You're like huffing and puffing, and there's just nothing. There's nothing for you. It's like the king in Cars when he's not even able to go. I mean, McQueen had to push the king over the line. Is Jerry Dipoto going to push the Mariners over the line? That is the question. You can still make that pit stop. You're almost past it, though. And the question now is it worth it? Is it even worth it? Right? Because there's a chance that you stop at that pit stop, you replace those tires. Let's say you trade for Jonathan India, who we've been connected to. Let's say you even trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They get 2 legit bats, Vladdy and Jonathan India. 2 guys that we have been connected to. Does that fix this team? Let me know in the comments what you think. Does that even fix this team? Because even if you pay to replace the tires, you still might not beat Houston. You still might not beat Texas. You still might not beat Boston and Kansas City. I mean, the idea that simply making a couple of trades, it could fix the team, it could get us going, or it might not. And so now the question on everyone's minds, is it worth it? Is it worth it to make that pit stop? Is it worth it to replace the tires? Is it worth it to make those trades? Is it worth the potential future value of these prospects to make those trades and to make the team better right now, even when there is not a guarantee you make the playoffs, right? You're in a 55-game sprint with Houston and with Texas. Can you win a 55-game sprint? I don't know. That's a real question. There's not a guarantee that even a Vladdy and Jonathan India, as much as that helps you, Julio might not play until September. JP won't play until September. Santos, the entire bullpen is decimated right now. I mean, Spire came back. He's been terrible. Voth, awful. Santos is hurt. So you have your bullpen is decimated. Your starting lineup is missing Canzone, who has been good this year, Julio, who had been heating up, and JP. All three of them not coming back till mid-August at the earliest. Julio could be back mid-August. Canzone, I'm hearing late August. JP, September. That's three of your better hitters in the lineup gone right now. So the question is, even if you go out and get those players, India, Vladdy, let's say you get a reliever too, even then, is it worth it for a potential playoff push? Now, here's what you're going to be surprised, because you might be thinking Levi's going to say it's not worth it. No. It is worth it. It is worth it. And I'll tell you why. Here's why. Look. I understand the appeal to holding on to prospects. I understand you're like, Julio popped off. Yeah, he did. But Kelnick didn't. Well, Cal popped off, but Justin Smoke didn't. Mike Zunino kind of did. Kyle Seager did, but he wasn't even a top prospect. Well, what about Gilbert? Yeah, Gilbert popped off. Danny Holtzen didn't. Right? James Paxton popped off. Erasmo Ramirez didn't. You know? So the idea that every single guy in our system is going to end up being a great player is wrong. Right? If you're sitting here thinking, Cole Young, Harry Ford, Colt Emerson, Logan Evans, Tyler Locklear, they're all going to be 2, 3, 4 WAR players in a couple of years. They're probably not all going to be that good. You think Laz is going to be an MVP candidate, and Feldman's going to be an MVP candidate, and Ty Pete and Johnny Farmello, they're all going to be great. Probably not. Probably not. History tells us with top prospects, there's about a 50% success rate, right? Julio popped, Kelnick didn't. Like, that's kind of where you're at. About a 50%. Some teams are luckier than others, right? It's easy to point to Baltimore and say, look at them. Every single guy, they kept him, and they all hit. That's not what happens to most teams. Like, look at Washington. They had Juan Soto, Victor Robles. Both of them were ranked among the 5 best outfield prospects. Robles was actually ranked higher than Soto. Soto popped. Robles, well, we know the story there. He never really caught on, right? Look at the Angels, right? They had Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh gets traded, he popped off. Joe Adell still hasn't popped off. It's been 5 years. So the idea that every single top prospect is going to pan out, that's just not true. And I think the Orioles having so much success, and maybe the Dodgers have had a lot of success, certain teams having so much success has kind of warped our idea of that, where we think that, we just got to keep everyone and they're all going to be great. It's not really how it works. Look at Boston, right? Tristan Casas was meant to be the next big thing. Bobby Dalbec before him. Casa's been okay. Dalbec's out of the league. But Jaren Duran's good, right? So they were like 1.5 out of 3. That's kind of where you're at with most teams. You're hitting about 50% of your top prospects. That's your top 100 guys, right? Top 100 guys are about 50%. So if you're thinking Colt Emerson, Laz Montez, who are the other ones? Cole Young, Harry Ford. You're talking those four. Those are your consensus top 100 guys. Probably 2 of them are going to be good, 2 won't. Okay, you got to pick the right 2 to keep, and that is where the evaluation comes in. That's where it's really important to have that really good evaluatory staff. But I think you can make those choices. And then for the rest of them, for like that mid-range prospects, it's about 25% success rate there. For every guy who's in your 5 through 15 of your team, how many of them are really going to be productive big leaguers? Probably 3 or 4. Probably about a 30-40%, 25-30-40% ratio. And then the rest of them, it's like a 5 to 10% chance that they become anything. So for anyone outside of your top 15, they should all be on the market because the chances that they amount to something are very slim. For that 5 to 15 range, again, I would say I would lean on the side of trading them because the chances that they become something are less than the chances that they don't. And then for the top prospects, I say keep 2 at least, but be willing to move 1 or 2 of your top 100 guys. Specifically, be willing to move a guy like Harry Ford because you already have a catcher in Cal Raleigh. Harry Ford is not going to help this team by being Cal's backup for the next 3 years. People are, well, what are we going to do when Cal leaves? That is 2028 problem right there. Cal is with this team for 2025, 26, 27. So unless Cal just falls off a cliff, I don't think he will. I think he's actually still getting better. Defensively, he's been really good. He has a lot of power. He's been, honestly, Cal's probably been our best all-around player this year. I don't know if he has the highest WAR. I haven't looked at the WAR leaderboards in a while. I'd be interested to see that. He's probably been our best all-around player. So you're not trading Cal. You're not getting rid of Cal. You might extend Cal. But even if you don't extend Cal, the idea that we're going to keep Harry Ford for the next 3 years as his backup and then let Harry Ford take over in 2028 is absurd. Harry Ford is much more valuable as a trade piece right now than he is as your backup catcher for the next 3 years. And I don't see how anybody, like, look at Jonathan Clase, right? Is he going to be something? Maybe. He hasn't been so far for this team. Other teams are going to be interested in him. I believe he's our number 9 prospect. Other teams are going to be interested in Tyler Locklear, who we have given a 1-week audition to be the replacement for Ty France. Tyler Locklear, teams will be interested. He's a fringe top 100 guy. He's a consensus top 150 guy. I think he's our number 7 right now in our system. Teams will be interested. Is Locklear more valuable to you for the next 2 years as he improves and grows, or is Vlad Guerrero more important, right? You trade Harry Ford, Jonathan Clase, Tyler Locklear, you probably get Vlad. And that's a fair trade in my opinion. I would make that trade, and I know a lot of Mariners fans wouldn't. You're hugging onto the prospects. I get it. I know how tempting it is to look at the Orioles and say, look at them, Westberg, Cowser, Adley, Gunnar, they all hit. I understand it's tempting, but that's not how it works for most teams. And historically, if you look at the Mariners, that's not how it's worked for us, right? Kelenic didn't hit. Kyle Lewis kind of did, but then he didn't in the end. Trammell didn't hit, right? We have recent examples of highly ranked prospects who didn't work out for us. Justice Sheffield, he was supposed to be like a top 5 right-handed pitching prospect in baseball. He amounted to nothing, right? Look at the trade we made. Look at the trades we have made, right? We traded for Luis Castillo. We got rid of Noelvi Marte, Edwin Arroyo, 2 guys who are very highly touted prospects. Neither of them have done much for the Reds so far. Maybe Marte will, but he just got suspended. He's coming off a steroid suspension. I'd say we won that trade, right? Look at even Polanco. We gave up Gabriel Gonzalez, hasn't done much yet. For the Winker Suarez deal, we gave up Brandon Williamson, who hasn't amounted to much yet. Levi Stout, there were people who were mad we traded Levi Stout. I mean, he came back to the Mariners. The idea that we're giving up all these future stars, no, we're not. And really, the ones who we have given up have been ones that we couldn't have even known about. Like, okay, we gave up Freddie Peralta for Adam Lind. We didn't know Freddie Peralta wasn't a highly ranked prospect at the time. So you're looking at a trade deadline approach where you have a bunch of guys who could be good that you can trade for the real thing right here, right now. This is as good as our rotation's ever going to be. This is as healthy as our rotation is ever going to be. Our rotation's never going to be this healthy, right? To think that Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby, Wu, Miller, all 5 of them are healthy, and Hancock is healthy in the minors, that might never happen again. Chances are it won't. Chances are Gilbert or Kirby or Miller, one of them is going to end up having to get Tommy John, because basically every pitcher these days has to get Tommy John. So you think Gilbert, Kirby, and Miller are going to be starting 30 games a season every year? You're insane. This year we have been so lucky with our pitchers' health and just by how good they are. I mean, again, Gilbert's having a career year. Castillo and Kirby are still really good. Miller's having a career year. Wu is having a breakout season. This rotation is the number 1 rotation in baseball by ERA, by WHIP, I think by strikeouts as well, by innings pitched. They are the consensus top rotation in baseball. The idea that we're going to waste that by hanging on to our prospects, I disagree with that idea. You have to make these trades. You have to. And Jerry Dipoto says they're looking for trades, but they're not sure if the right deal's available. I'll tell you what, that is a losing mentality right there. And Jerry Dipoto, if he wants to keep his job as GM for this team, he has to make trades. I think he knows that. I hope he knows that. But he's already going out on the radio and saying things like, the right trade isn't available. He said this year in particular, the right trade isn't available. That's, excuse my language, that's BS. Because I know for a fact that there will be players that get traded. It might not be Vlad. It might not be Jazz Chisholm. It might not be Luis Robert. There are going to be guys who get moved. The Marlins, the White Sox, the Cubs just said that they're selling. The Blue Jays, maybe not selling Vlad, but they're going to sell off some pieces, right? The Rockies are going to sell. The A's are going to sell. There are going to be teams that sell off pieces. The Nationals are probably going to sell. There's about 7 or 8 teams right now that I guarantee you are going to make trades. So the question is not if the right players are available. The question to Jerry is, are you willing to make a bold move to get the right player? Jerry was saying that the trades aren't there. That's a lie. The trades are there. The question is, does Jerry want to make them? Is Jerry willing to part with his prospects and make them? He has only truly done that once before. It was for Luis Castillo, and it worked out perfectly. That was the one time that Jerry's made a big, major deadline trade. Forget Denard Span. That was irrelevant. Carlos Santana was a nice move, but it was not at the deadline. B, it was not a big trade. He's made one big trade in his life at the deadline, and it was the Luis Castillo trade. Does he have the balls to do it again? And if I was him, you have to have the balls, because if the Mariners blow a 10-game lead with a fully healthy rotation, and at the time, a fully healthy lineup, right? Julio and JP got hurt after we had already blown it. So during the 24-game stretch where we blew the 10-game lead, we had a fully healthy lineup, and we had a fully healthy rotation. And we were playing some of the easiest teams in baseball. The Nationals, Marlins, Rays, who were bad at the time, Angels. Those were not difficult teams. We've lost 9 of our last 10 series, and I believe 6 of those 9 series that we lost are teams below 500. That's awful. That's just terrible. If Jerry Dipoto wants to keep his job he has to make up for what just happened in the past 29 games. If Scott Service wants to keep his job, neither of them have extensions, and neither of them are going to get it unless this team turns a corner. And you're not turning the corner unless you make those moves. You're not. You're not turning the corner, especially when Julio and JP and Dom Canzone are all hurt. Especially when your bullpen has gone to complete awfulness. I mean, there's nobody good in the bullpen right now except for Munoz and, like, Saucedo, I guess. Like, Voth, Thornton, Santos before the injury, they've all been bad. Stanek suddenly has been terrible. So Aspire since coming back has been terrible. So you cannot look at this and say to yourself, well, it's just, a couple injuries happen, baseball happens, we got to give him the extension. No. And Jerry needs to know that. He's not keeping his job if the Mariners miss the playoffs. And neither is Scott. There's no way. John Stanton, I understand he cares more about the bottom line than winning. But John Stanton is not bringing back these guys if the Mariners blow that 10-game lead in the fashion that they did. Let me remind you all what I just brought up. 10-game lead, super easy schedule, fully healthy lineup, fully healthy rotation. We blew it. It has been a meltdown, a disaster of such high incompetence by this team. And if Jerry Dipoto wants to turn this thing around, if he wants to keep his job, if he wants this team to make the playoffs, if he wants to continue being the president of baseball operations for the Mariners, he needs to have the balls to make those trades. And again, the question is not, are the right trades available? The question is Jerry Dipoto willing to make that uncomfortable sacrifice, the thing that he has only done one time in the past 8 years? Is he willing to make the uncomfortable sacrifice to make the trade? The cost is worth it. These guys, we don't know that if they will amount to anything. Look at the way we are on, and especially see how the injuries have affected our farm system. Colt Emerson, Johnny Farmelo, Felon Celestin all missed significant time. I believe Felon's out for the season. Farmelo is also out for the season. You cannot think that with the way that injuries can happen, injuries in minor leagues can derail players' careers. Can derail them. You cannot hug on to prospects. You have to be willing to make those trades. The wheels have fallen off the bus for the Mariners, but in the next week, you can make that pit stop. You can replace the wheels. You can get this thing rolling again. You can get this thing turned around. Julio's going to come back. Canzone's going to come back. Eventually, JP's going to come back. You still have the best rotation in baseball. You're losing these games by 2 runs. 2 bats can turn a 1-run loss into a 1-run win. Vlad Guerrero Jr. on his own might do that. Vladdy and India together, then you can get rid of Polanco. You can send down Locklear or Vossler, whoever, whatever you want to do there. If you trade for Vladdy and India, that right there, a lot of these 2-run losses just turned into 2-run wins. That's all you need is a couple of guys. It's not like we're getting blown out. We're not. We're losing close games. We're in these games. We're competitive. We just need a couple more bats to put this offense over the top. And we can do that. Jerry, the ball is in your court. I don't want to hear this BS about how the right trade wasn't available. I guarantee you there will be players that get traded. There will be teams that are selling. The question is not, is the right player available? The question is, are you willing? Do you have the balls, Jerry Dipoto, to do what needs to be done? That is what remains to be seen. And if not, you're going to have some very harsh critics come August 1st. Because Mariners fans are not going to continue to put up with this. Mariners players are not going to continue to put up with this. If you don't make those moves, if you don't make a big swing, 1 or 2 big swings, if you let this season go to waste, if you miss the playoffs for the 8th of 9 seasons you've been in charge, you're not going to be in charge for much longer. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my rant. This is the NW Sportscast.